Hello and welcome back to another edition of the Osceola's Seminole Sidelines, and we have a very special guest today. We are joined by FSU Director of Player Development and Football Operations, Jeff Kupper. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. By the way, can they fit your entire title on a business card?
I don't even try. I don't use business cards. This is the 2000s.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Well, I noticed on the website it actually cuts out it's just director of operations, not football operations. So they did try to save some typing on the website.
You have to pay per character.
Yeah. Well, listen, man, glad to have you on the show. We have not had you on our show before. I think during COVID, we had just about every new assistant coach on the show at that time. So we're long overdue. And one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show is you were just named Football Scoop, the director of football operations of the year for 2024. So congratulations on that.
Thank you, sir. And
then, of course, the other reason is I've kind of walked in your shoes before, but I still get a lot of questions. Even when I was working in football operations, what exactly does the director of football operations do? And so when you won this award, I got some questions about, I understand that you worked in football operations. Can you tell us what Jeff does? And I said, well, how about this? We'll do one better. We'll have Jeff on the show so he can tell you himself. So, but anyway, you have been at Florida State since Mike Norvell took the job in 2020. So you've been here for the entire, really, resurrection of Florida State's football program. So I want to get your thoughts on that a little bit too. But Jeff, first of all, just give us your little some background on how you got into football. We our subscribers and obviously the people that listen to our podcast and videocast, they like to kind of know the backstory behind people that are associated with Florida State. So let's get talk about your football background and how you eventually ended up at Florida State.
All right. So I grew up in West Texas, I guess an infamed town called Odessa. Usually this sparks a conversation about that. No, I didn't go to Permian High School, which is what Friday Night Lights is written about. I went to Odessa High School, which has one chapter in the book called The Other School. But life the same was still in football was very important. It governed every decision that was politics and government and where you ate and what side of town you lived on. And I would say that I'm generational Odessa High. So I was even more distorted when, 33 years in a row determined the winner went to state championship and the other school won to create their fame. And Odessa High was always second place in the conference. And till my year came along, and we don't spend a lot of time reminiscing about high school days, but the glorification of that success and that one-time win kind of set me on a path to really enjoy football maybe as much as anyone. I got a lot of recognition and therefore some allowances as being an athlete, and that experience of balancing all those things and expectations. But in reality, at the time, I really wanted to pursue being a rodeo clown and youth minister as my professional career. And I thought that you could be the minister on Wednesday and Sunday to the traveling group of the rodeo, and then actually climb the rodeo profession as a clown Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So I thought they were, business-wise as well as emotionally very compatible for me. And ultimately got hurt, playing some pickup basketball that wouldn't allow me to run and avoid bulls, and then did some work in the church and decided that my faith didn't really want to mix with the business of it. So fell back on my most known experience is football, and ever since then, I've been fortunate to have doors continue to open. I've never taken a job that was on the right side, the good side of their program, but I've been fortunate enough that each time we've left a place, it's been in as good a condition as that program's ever achieved. So hopefully not leaving anytime soon here. I feel like we got some work to do, but I think the growth in the last 4 to now 5 years is evident and gratifying. So
let's go back to the rodeo now. Did you grow up on a farm, on a ranch? Did you grow up riding horses? Sir.
I grew up riding horses, but I didn't own them. My family is all coaches. my grandfather was is now in the state of Texas Hall of Fame as a baseball coach.
Okay.
Baseball fields are named after him for his success. But my dad was a coach and longtime basketball referee. My mom was an elementary PE coach and youth league rec coaching, and then all of my other family's administrative and education. But the rodeo comes every year, 2 or 3 times, different versions of it to Odessa, and then my one of my dad's co-workers / best friend was the rodeo coach for the Odessa College Wranglers, which has more national champions in junior college than anyone at the time. And anybody that rodeoed through the 90s was an Odessa College rodeo. So all the names those people are most likely connected to the Odessa College rodeo.
Yeah,
So
I had a buddy in high school that tried rodeo one time.
Yeah,
one time, and that was it. He was done with it. We went over to Jefferson County to watch him compete, and the horse about killed him. So he retired. That's the only guy I've ever known that's been in the rodeo. But I appreciate the hell out of those people. They're tough as nails.
Yes, sir. And I would say this: one of my former colleagues, I guess, is a head coach at another school. To do some fundraising for his program, he decided to partner with Tough Hedeman and ride Widowmaker out there in Vegas just earlier this month. It's made the internet fame, but he took it pretty hard, and I think he's still in protocol. But he raised a couple $100,000 and some awareness for his program. So hey, man, live the cowboy dream, cowboy up.
All right. So how many times have you listened to Chris Ledoux's 8-second ride in your life?
I've listened to it quite often. I would say Garth Brooks' Rodeo was a theme song of mine at one point. Amarillo by Morning is always a very fortunate conversation in the truck. So,
yep. Yeah. Well, I had to ask about Chris Ledoux once you brought it up. That's one of my favorite country singers, and God bless his soul. I guess I think he's passed on. But hey, listen, y'all talk Mike into doing a fundraiser on riding the bull or bucking bronco.
One thing I don't have to do is talk to Coach Norvell about anything. He's gung-ho for just about everything, and I think he'd give that animal a lot of hell, as much energy as he carries to practice. So,
well, I saw the alligator thing last year. All right, so what is your all right? Let's just go back to Friday Night Lights real quick. What it was the book out of the 3 things, was your book the favorite, the movie your favorite, or the series your favorite?
Well, that's easy because the book's the only thing I read. It's actually given. I've been a guest speaker in every college I've ever gone to talk about it. It's not my favorite thing to discuss in the world. I think it's past the first chapter. It doesn't really matter to me. The chronicle of a season happens for everybody, and I think that's what everybody kind of connects to. Yep. I think if you just the first part of that book talking about how life and all things considered around football are impacted equally. It's whether art imitates life or life the other way. I think that's my more impactful conversation. For the movie, we waited a long, long time. There's a lot of local politics involved in it, but I think the only positive of that movie for me was that Permian still lost at the end, because if they had actually won that game, I would just walk out the theater and they would have missed the point of the book. And then the series, it was just a fun spin. It wasn't related to the book in any way. I think it was just very popular. And I watched only maybe a few of the episodes of the first season, mainly because Coach Brown being a cameo in it at the time that was coming out, it was still connected through multiple ways of Coach Brown. He's probably one of my better and stronger and probably most consistent mentors of my career. And so it's fun to see him in different roles.
Yeah, now obviously there's a FSU connection going back to your college days. You went to the University of Texas where Mack Brown was a head coach, and what was it like working on his staff? What kind of guy was he? I mean, obviously I don't know Coach Brown that well. Obviously was gone a long time before I ever got to Tallahassee, but know just about everything about his career on the field. But what was he like off the field?
I learned a lot from him. It was a change again. The way he treated players, the way He managed the staff and those kind of things. I had never seen anyone in that way. So I think he set a lot of archetypes for me on how to be a positive environment. I think later on, once I started getting into my actual career, his stories of how he changed the University of Texas trajectory, and everywhere else he's been, I think are very relevant to everyday scenarios. I don't think that he's encountered anything new. It's been repetitive, and I've been able to learn from that. So very valuable in my life. I'm appreciative of all the time he spent investing in me, even if I was as low away from his reach as possible. He's always given a time. And I tell you what, it was a time when you grow up, as a young man, you can be kind of standoffish of other male relations and kind of honor of protocol, etc. But he was probably one of the first grown men to consistently not just shake your hand, but every time you saw him, he would hug you, and it felt real, and that's a gift I think he's always had. And I think he's a genuine human, and it really allowed me to be comfortable almost hugging my own children, because it made it okay in a lot of ways. So I'll value him on and off the field, and how to build a program and treat people and all those things. It's almost surreal sometimes the way he makes you feel when you're in the room. So it's good for, and I think, again, I've been fortunate to, because of my experience with him, be able to compare what a coach can look like. And I think Coach, again, bringing it back to Coach Norvell, in a lot of ways, he doesn't hug me, but he's genuine, and you can feel the kind of guy you want to work for. And so a career as long as mine has to be, I'm glad to have met up with Coach Norvell, because you can walk into a room and feel his genuineness, and that's very comparable of why we're successful everywhere he's been, is because people believe in him when they're in the room. And that's something you learn back in college, and getting to see Coach Brown. I'm sure he relates well to Coach Bowden and a lot of other great coaches of that era, that Coach Norvell is being continuously compared to by former players here. They can feel it in his speech. They can feel it in his passion. People have often said that he has a lot of Coach Bowden in it, and it has to do with, I think, Norvell studied those guys, and
Yep.
truly aspired to be a coach because of people like them.
Well, and that's part of your path to FSU, was running into Coach Mike Norvell when he took over the Memphis program. But I gotta say this, Jeff. Even on the football ops side of things, you do not see most guys survive one head coaching change, let alone two, which you did at Memphis. But obviously, tell us what it was, how your relationship developed with Mike from the time he came in. I'm sure there was a window of time where you did not know where you were going to be retained by Mike, just like most staff changes. There's a little gray area when they first get there. They're going to evaluate things, but just talk a little bit about how you developed your relationship with Mike at Memphis, and how that got you to Tallahassee.
Yeah, I think it's, I wouldn't say it's love at first sight. When he came in, he was being announced, and I was preparing for a bowl game that didn't have a head coach, that didn't have half our staff had already left to Virginia Tech with Coach Fuente. Never knew who he was recruiting. I didn't know if I had an opportunity to go with Coach Fuente or stay at Memphis, or which master to serve, because we had an interim coach that we were still trying to win a game. And so, do you do things the way the new guy would expect them, the way the old guy did them, or where the interim needs them? It was definitely a balance. But in this business, it's very it's very much a relationship business. So the guy that had originally hired me to come to Memphis, excuse me, was Larry Porter. And when we weren't successful initially, he was let go and actually ended up working at Arizona State as the running backs coach for the offensive coordinator, Coach Norvell. Now, years passed, Coach Norvell, had a relationship with Coach Porter, and and I didn't know this, but when Mike took the job here at Memphis, he asked Coach Porter for some advice, and the one thing allegedly that was said was he had to keep me as a person on his staff. And I felt honored to have that endorsement. I didn't know it. I never put that together. Didn't look for that kind of networking, but I was fortunate to be able to stay because of it. I actually met Coach Norvell in a story that's probably not for viewers, but it was in the locker room while shaving my head, getting ready for my introduction, and he walked into the locker room in a uncomfortable introduction, to say the least, for both of us. But either way, I think it only went up from there. So I think that's at least for me, anyways. I think that starting off on the bottom is a good, first introduction. So there's no expectations of grandeur.
Yeah, well, he always talks about putting people in adverse situations and making them uncomfortable. I guess that was true for you guys from the start. All right, well, that's good. That's good to know. That's good to know. All right, so you were with him for what, 5 years at Memphis, 4 years at Memphis?
He was 4 seasons, and then we came here. So,
now,
this is year 9.
When he took the job at Florida State, did you know that you were going from the time he got the job, or is there a gray area where you're like, oh shit, here we go again? I'm going to have to go through this 6 weeks where I don't know what the hell's going to happen to me?
Yes, sir. All that. I did not know that I was not part of the initial staff offering at that immediate time, which is understandable. They have people here that have been a long standing at Florida State. So there's no real need to bring a guy in December. He knew how important the Cotton Bowl was for that program. And I think that me leaving as the only one, as literally the only staff member doing operations there, would have really been a disservice to the players and staff that he had helped lead to their ascension. And I think he's very conscious of people and their experience. So I'm not proposing that I wasn't on the front end. I just don't know that I was a priority. I think that building his best staff, he had to figure out where I might fit in. So I think that's all part of it. The weeks of unknown were limited. It might have been 10 days or so. And then we had to have some negotiation on exactly what my responsibilities would be when we came here, because I don't think there was the person before me, the staff before me, didn't have exactly what I do and what I do well. So having to conform this position was a little bit of a process, I think, as well. But
well, let's talk about that, because all head coaches use operations personnel differently. When I worked for Skip Holtz, he used me differently than Jim Leavitt did, and different than Brad Scott did. So when you got to Florida State, what are your I know what some of them are, but our listeners and subscribers don't necessarily. But what are some of your major areas of responsibility? And I know that obviously there's a lot of servant leadership involved in what you do, because you're responsible for a lot of things that happen with players off the field. But just kind of give us, what your major areas of responsibility are, and what a day in the life of Jeff Kupper on campus could be, whether it's in season or out of season.
Yeah, so I think the large part of the job is basically making sure that a player and a staff member are supported in doing their job. If I do my job well, they can do their job better. So if they have a request or an interest, then I want to make sure that we fulfill those first, because doing their part, getting my part out of their way, allows them to go ahead on and do their part without waiting on me. So we try to be efficient in that way of whether or not the schedule is correct and communicated, whether or not where you're going to stay, whether that's permanent housing or temporary housing. I think those are two very stabilizing factors for people in their own comfortability. Your anxieties as an individual are what's your future look like, what's your present look like, and I think that our job is to make sure that future is unimpeded and that present is comfortable. So we help you with your onboarding, whether that's coming in as an employee. You want to know when you're getting paid, and you want to know how much taxes are going to come out. You want to know If you're a scholarship athlete, you want to know when does that scholarship check, get delivered and how much is it? So a lot of those processes of life are no different than the other person, but we manage kind of the connection of that individual's life to the bureaucracy of the world. So,
well, listen, I can say this from personal experience. There is nobody else on Florida State's campus, if it ever happens to you guys, that's more disappointed that payroll check or scholarship checks don't show up than you, because you're getting the first phone call, because I used to get them at South Florida. So
yes,
yeah, I've been there, and I used to tell those kids all the time, listen, there is nobody more disappointed about you not getting your scholarship check than me, because you're not going to leave me alone until I get it taken care of. So yeah, I get that totally.
Well, and there's 85 of those guys on scholarship, and you control none of the cash flow. It's not your money.
That's
so
right.
Somebody in some other office has the full authority of how that's administrated. And then maybe that athlete had some issues of why his check is short. Maybe he parked on campus and got a parking ticket and just didn't pay it, or maybe he did some things that cost him a few dollars at the university. The university is going to take their money first, and sometimes that process isn't like payroll, so it's not natural for people to understand it. So we deal with those problems and really any other issue that might come up. But our job is to make sure that those problems are minimal, because you've been prepared through the processes of getting that all out of the way. In the event something does happen, we want to mitigate those consequences. We don't want things to linger. We know life is going to happen. We just want to be able to address the positives and the negatives. We want to celebrate your wins and then really kind of make sure your losses are minimum. So I think that's the most you can really describe it. So
yeah, well, listen, and there's no doubt that a guy in your position probably touches the kids just almost as much as the strength staff does on a daily basis, sometimes more than the on-field guys do. So yeah, listen, I think you have one of the most rewarding jobs in college athletics. I loved my time in football operations. A lot of people think that we're crazy because we do what we do, or I did what I did. But listen, I think that, and I like it because you're old school. I see how hard you work out there on Saturday when y'all are getting ready for the Legacy weekend. It always takes me back to my days at USF and South Carolina. So yeah, listen, I think that I mean, listen, I know that a lot of times you are putting out fires. I mean, that's part of the job in football ops. But at the end of the day, or at the end of a season, or at the end of 4 or 5 years where you've built relationships with these kids and you've seen them grow. And some of that, Jeff, is because of the conversations you have with these kids. I mean, I don't think you can deny that. I mean, the coaches get all the credit, but like you said, you're part of your responsibility is to help kids move forward in every aspect of their life. How rewarding do you find this job when a kid's gone on and maybe out of the program 2 or 3 years, and things that you identified that he needed help with, he's now moved forward with and turned into a successful adult?
Yeah. So just to clarify, for me, again, you say putting out fires. I try to attack my job as lighting fires, right? So I want to actually get a burn on whether it's the administration or whether it's the university or the community or the athlete or the coach. I want to make sure that fire for success is always stoked, right? We're trying to move onward and upward. And so whether that means if you have a passion, we want to fuel it. If you don't know what your interest is, we want to build it. We want to make you explore. We want to get you out there and connect you to things that can always enhance if it's not your daily experience, you never know when you'll draw upon that information in the future. So I would say that we're trying to light as many fires as possible. I think that that's what really has helped elevate the program in a lot of ways. Some of the things, just from a player standpoint, our nutrition investment is significantly different than what it looked like. Our equipment operations is significantly different. Just the things that touch those players allows them to be positive, and then everybody wants to go to work in a positive experience. So we try to build that world to where the fire is lit and you come in excited. I would say from a scoreboard standpoint, I think that when those players go on and are successful, I do believe that that's how we should measure our success. And whether that's in the NFL and making money at who knows how much, or whether that means, getting the first career step, I think that that's equally as important. I consider them both jobs, right? Our ultimate development is measured in your future careers, and we want you to be a productive member of society. So if you have come here and you get the advantage of all of the support that Florida State offers, academic support, scholarship support, nutritional development, strength training, all of those things just poured into you, your curve of your life should never be equal to that of a regular student. You should be able to maximize and continue to grow to where, just like any other investment, you want that compounded interest. So I look at the world of what we do as the difference in investment versus expense. And, an expense might be really just putting money out there, but investment, you want it to come back to you at a return. And so we try to find those ways to make your time, your energy, your expense to be returning at a higher rate and compounding interest. So that's how we kind of look at the world.
Well, and I think that's a healthy way to look at it. And listen, I think it is I think that's one of the, as I log on to Facebook on a daily basis, and I see these kids that we had at South Florida that have grown into fathers and successful businessmen, men, and it's fun to see. So wanted to ask you about that. Now, listen, I know I've kept you a lot longer than I told you I would. Which we
all right, I got nothing to do but hang out with you.
We have a propensity to do that here at the Osceola. So I'm going to try to wrap it up really quick. I got a couple other topics I want to hit on with you. But obviously, you guys, Mike preaches a lot about giving back to the community. You guys are very actively involved in community service outreach in different programs. What are you guys doing now? I mean, what are some of the programs, and how do you guys select who you're involved with from a community service standpoint? And what are some of your favorite memories in your 4 years here at Florida State that you think, some of the things that you and the players have done off the field?
Sure. So just, I guess, yesterday's practice culminated a 9-month process where we were a part of a local charitable group here that has, 30, youth that are all in situations that no one chose to be in, and have been left for, their own, diminished experience, I guess you could say. And so we had a shoe design contest that started out last July. It was ultimately 30 to 50 entries. They were pared down, voted on by the public on the internet, and then a winning design was determined. We have a young man, Rob Scott, on our team that's we've tried to kind of highlight in his talent and love for painting shoes. There's plenty of coaches and players on our team that have had him, design and play and paint his own shoes for them. So we offered that as an opportunity to invest in the community, and he did that and presented that shoe design in real form yesterday to the young man who knew he came to practice to receive it, but when put in front of the public, just was overwhelmed with the overall spotlight on him for the first time in probably his life, especially for something he accomplished. Right. Being the best at something is probably not common in his world and his young life. And in this case, he was highlighted and put forward. And I hope that opportunity, not just the shoes, but the ability to be up front and recognized should have a lasting impact. I would say this next couple of weeks, we have some fun things planned with, some organizations that will involve, again, the youth and some, big brothers, big sisters. I think we're okay with announcing them. We'll be here in a couple of weeks. We have another local organization that we can't mention, but we'll give away beds that we're going to go to the needy families and people that are in transition or have had tough goes at it. But really, and when I look at what we're trying to do, we want to make sure that there's an opportunity to touch somebody physically. We want to, not physically, but we want to make sure that their emotions, their future, their relationship is all intact with us. We want to make sure it's not just a one-hit hour presentation or a 15-minute high five. We want the opportunity to be engaged and maybe make an impact on our player and maybe make an impact on that person, because at the end of the day, it's still serving others is what most of our players really aspire to do. They know the platform they're on, and they want to be thankful and pass that along. And so standing up on a highway and picking up trash, it's probably not something that we're going to do too much of, because that's just using these guys for their labor and their muscle.
Right.
They already get that. But
Right.
using them as people is what they want to be. They want to be an inspiration, not just on the field, but off the field. And I think we're going to look for those organizations that allow that opportunity to truly connect and have some standing long term. So.
How often, Jeff, do you see it impact? Obviously, you've mentioned some working with at risk youth and earlier, and obviously you guys go to schools. I've seen that on social media, visit with school age kids and various other things. But how many times do you see it benefit the player, where it changes the direction that a college football player is going in his personal life, or has a profound impact on who he becomes?
Yes, sir. Well, I would say that in the past 3 years here specifically, we've had, 3 notable awards given to the people of this program. Coach Norvell won this past year, was noted in the Bobby Dodd Award, which is exactly a program national award given to a head coach whose, community service is as big a part of it as success on the field. The year before that, in 22, Dylan Gibbons won every award possible in the country. Warful, uplifting athletes, AFCA. He won every national award possible for community service. He started his own 501c3. He brought Timmy to Tally. You guys might remember some of that on game day. But he also helps youth in many other ways. Fish and Wildlife he partnered with, did a lot of things in the community. Now he's back in Tampa, where he's from, and still trying to invest back in some of our current players. Still has his big man, big heart thing. There's lots of organizations that he himself has created and was recognized for that. Cam McDonald, the year before that, coming out of COVID, started his own organization to give to the homeless and to give the frontline workers, and became yoga certified. So we've been fortunate to have a lot of players whose aspirations of giving back are exponentially phenomenal. And I think that those trajectories have changed their world. Because they've learned how to create their own business, how to create their own public speaking, have gone out and built their platform for the betterment of the world. So I think it's very easy to see the impact that the less fortunate have on us. And I think that's unrecognized. I mean, easily recognizable.
Well, obviously you guys don't need me to pay you compliments, but I will say this, having done your job for 10 years at 2 other schools, your commitment to what you guys do from a community service aspect should be commended. We dabble our toes in it. The 2 programs I was in, you guys are giving a consistent effort, and I think it. As a Florida State alumni and as a Tallahassee resident who talked to a lot of other Florida State fans and Tallahassee people, I know it's appreciated around town, and the fact that I do think it's real with you guys, and it's the proof's in the pudding, and we see you guys out there all the time. All right, so Jeff, now I'm way over our time now, but you guys have a little trip coming up pretty soon, and I know over the course of your career at Ohio and Columbia and Memphis, now FSU, I don't know how. I know you're somewhat involved with the travel component of Florida State football program, because I see you a day early up at the hotels before the team gets there when you guys travel. But how far are you guys along with the Ireland trip? I've got like 4 different questions I want to ask you.
Sure.
Where are you guys in preparation for this? Have you taken a trip over to Dublin as to check out the facilities and where you guys are going to stay? And if not, when are you going to do that?
Yeah, so we're going on what we call our site visit the last week in April, getting back the April 28th through May 2nd. We actually had an introductory call with all the boots on the ground per se in Ireland. We just did that this week. I would say that having known this trip was coming up for a couple of years, we are probably as close to this trip as we would be for any other domestic trip at this point.
Right.
We know where our hotel is. In fact, we have some domestic trips that our hotel contracts still aren't completed, but we know at least hotel. We know that there's no police escorts in Ireland. You know, we know that our security guards can't take their own firearms. We know that we have 2 international students on our team who have their own processes versus the other 118 players that'll be with us. We know those things, so it's pretty comfortable, I would say, where we are. We know when we're going to ship our freight. We understand all of the kind of the fundamentals. I think that even from a program standpoint, we're down to our last few guys that are getting their passports that are currently on our roster, and then the rush will be the guys that aren't currently here, because we're not allowed to pay for anything until they actually become on campus. So we'll hit those new guys in June really heavy, really hard. We're asking them to collect their data right now, like their birth certificates and other things. So we're ready to hit the ground pretty quickly on Ireland, I would say.
All right, so it's not going to be dramatically different than a trip across country just because of the time that you've had to prepare.
I wouldn't say it's going to be dramatically going forward. I would say that up to this point, there's been a lot of differences. International travel is different, you know, to the point where our game day stuff that normally travels by a branded 18-wheeler is going to have to be shipped to Orlando to fly out on a cargo space that only has 2 flights a week. So neither one of them were ideal for us, but we're going to have to figure out what needs to be there with time for us to go and prepare it. And what we actually have to have here to prepare before going. So,
are you sitting Basin with the equipment on that flight, or does he get this?
Yeah, I think we'll take Jesse on the advance, but you know, Jason definitely be on the front end of loading it. And again, you know, we've got a lot of people that have done this for a few years and a lot of experience in bowl trips. Those are very similar to this experience. So it's not new completely for a lot of folks.
Now, have you guys talked with anybody at Navy or Notre Dame or any of the teams that have done this before about their, you know, where they stayed? Or I'm sure the game has hotels already, you know, I mean, all that. But as far as the processes and what they did while they were there, have y'all talked to other programs?
We have on some generic stuff. I think some of the more nuanced things we'll get into, but just from an overall scheduling, from you know, do you ship your own ranch dressing versus you know, from America versus whatever it might be the Dublin version of ranch? They seem to love it over there, but they don't know it's Hidden Valley or whatever brand we put out on the table. We're going to still go over there and play an ACC conference game, so we got to go be prepared as if it were in America.
Yeah, and I don't think, and some coaches have their things, right, that they want on game day or they want in pregame meal, and you got to make sure they have those in Ireland too. Now, with Jim Levitt, you couldn't have a plate of butter; you had to have the butter pats.
Correct.
So, I mean, so there are things like that. If they didn't have butter pats in Ireland, Jim would have gone crazy. But so there's things like that you do have to find out, little minutia like that. All right, so I'm assuming that you're going over in April. Who else will go over there with you, and how long will y'all be there? And they going to schedule any fun for you while you're over there?
Well, again, I don't know about the overall itinerary. I'm sure that we'll build in some fun on the time that we get our work done. But it's a full-on set. We're going to take the Moore Center and put it in Dublin for 3 days, right? So our video people are going to go with us, our equipment folks. You know, it's really all new. Bruce has already been over there, and Coach Norvell have already been over there. So there is some familiarity on the planning process. Why wouldn't we stay out in the countryside? Why would we stay in town? We're going to take some team trips, you know, while we're there as part of the schedule. So making sure that how did we want that to lay out from a city bus tour to, you know, a tour of this museum or whatever it may be. Those things have kind of been pre-scouted. We're going to go now and kind of refine. This is where our pickup is. This is where the buses will be. Meet the bus organizers, et cetera. So we have some familiarity with the whole operation, but we're going to run our own fiber, have our own network, all the things that people take for granted. That'll go over there.
Yeah, so it's going to be a remote office basically. I mean, you're taking the whole thing. Yeah, no, we used to do that.
We might rent a printer,
Yeah.
But we're going to take our own laptops, and cell phones need different chargers. For just the conversion from the type that plug into the wall here are not the same electricity over there. So,
is there anything else that you've learned that's kind of surprised you about differences between Ireland and the United States as far as those kind of things are concerned?
Well, like Dublin is whatever they call that kind of city where you don't actually have to clear customs on America coming back.
Yep.
You clear customs on the outbound. So when you get here at the airport, we can literally walk off the plane and get on the bus and go home, which will be enjoyable versus the 2-hour wait that it'll take you going through customs in a normal international trip. Those are kind of cool things, that there's a reciprocity in Ireland, that they want American tourism, and they still speak English, so some of us might be able to not need translators, and
that's right.
And they might need a translator for our version more than us.
That is probably true, especially some of the Southern accents you're going to have.
No question, we got them all.
Hey, now obviously the team's going to go over on one flight. Now, will there be a small group go over a couple days before the team gets there?
That's where I'll be mostly responsible for that, and that's why we're going to take a site visit just so that I'm familiar with it. But when we get over there, we travel up, like you said earlier, a couple of days before the team actually arrives, and make sure when they get there, it feels like it was as home away from home as possible. We will have met again with the hotel, because every organization has the people that you talk to all year long, and then there's the people that actually are cooking the steak. So you have to make sure that the chef understands that he can win every award he wants to all year long, but on Friday night for pregame, there is no pink in the beef. It is a medium minimum to medium well. So no pink in the beef is as important of an aspect of anything we do in travel, because we can always go buy a pair of socks.
Right.
We can't always make sure we're fed in the time frame we do if the meat is not appealing.
That's right. Well, listen, I think it's going to be a fun trip. You're going to do a lot of work, which brings me to my last question. I'm going to let you go because we're way, way over. All right, so you guys have been to a couple of really nice bowls here lately. You got to go to the Orange Bowl this year, the Cheez-It Bowl the year before that. Everybody else on the itinerary, the head coach, the assistant coaches, the players, support staff, most of those people have some downtime built into bowl trips where they don't have to worry about anything. Do you ever, and I know part of enjoying the bowl trip is that you're a part of it, get to go, you're working for one of the best programs. I get all that. But is there any time where you get to take a deep breath and enjoy the bowl trip with your family? Or are you just always on call?
Well, every bowl's a little different, but I would say that between the ops people and the head coach, obligations are the majority of the time. I'd say I'm fortunate here at Florida State that we have two people that kind of work under me, at least one last year, and now we're back to two. But, there's an opportunity to share some of the load. So my kids, I have two daughters, that are just this month going to turn 6 and 9. So they're in the spirit of life, and they enjoy getting to spend a holiday in a hotel. Our biggest concern is making sure we left enough cookies at home that Santa wants to find us at both places. So we get concerned a little bit about that, but we've been fortunate in Florida on the beach, and they can entertain themselves, and they love seeing the other coaches' kids, and so there's each bowl is structured differently. We've been very fortunate that the last two bowls here have been a lot of organized fun. Nothing's better than Orlando or Miami as far as things to do with kids. So I think most of the bowls are shifting now anyways to a lesser schedule, because so many coaches only want to work about winning the football game and treating it as a real game. So I think a lot of the fanfare for the teams per se and the obligations they're starting to diminish a little as the games become more and more important to win and determining futures and recruiting and those things. So I think that overall, I think the Bulls have done a great job entertaining us, but here it's been a much different experience than my other opportunities. But I will have said I've been a part of no bowls enough to know that, as you said, any bowl is fun because you get to go. And most of the time, that should mean you get to come back and that's always the goal.
And the extra month of pay ain't bad either.
I don't get that. That's not in my contract. So
I think operations people should be treated just like coaches on that now.
Well, now you're getting to the next hour. We can cut here. And
yeah. All right. Well, hey Jeff, I appreciate you joining us and educating us a little bit, not only about what you do for Florida State, but what's going on with the Ireland trip, because we do have a lot of our subscribers and listeners that are asking us about Ireland, and obviously. One of our partners is Anthony Travel, who is working with Aer Lingus on getting FSU fans to the game. And Florida State fans can go to Seminoles2Ireland.com. That is Seminoles, the number 2, Ireland.com, and they'll take you to the Florida State athletics site where they got some packages for this trip to Ireland. And Jeff, look forward to seeing you again soon down on campus, and look forward to having you back on Seminole Sidelines sometime.
You got it. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir.
Your Seminoles kick off the 2024 football season in Dublin, Ireland, as they face the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets in the Aer Lingus College Football Classic. Join fellow Florida State fans on a trip you won't soon forget. Game tickets for the August 24th matchup are now available through Florida State Athletics Ticket Office and selling fast. Visit Seminoles2Ireland.com. That's Seminoles, the number 2, Ireland.com. And go Noles!